Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Here I am at Bristol Temple Meads. Now just over there are lots of works taking place here at Bristol Temple Meads because they're opening a new entrance. You can see there's lots of cranes and lots of other things going on over there. But it's to an earlier development here in Bristol that we return to today. Yes, it's part 2 of the Bristol Harbour Railway, which opened initially in 1872. And last time we looked at the tunnel that went under part of the churchyard at St Mary Redcliffe Church. 4 years later, there was an extension added onto that to Wapping Wharf. This time though, we're going to be looking at another improvement to that line, which happened a few years later. Well, much later in fact, in 1902, where we had the Ashton Cord was added, the West Cord. And that enabled the Bristol Harbour Railway to be not only connected to here at Bristol Temple Meads, but also to the Portishead branch, more about which in a bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the station here, make my way back yet again to the Bristol Harbour, but this time we'll be looking at the branch that goes off into the distance near the M shed and see what we can uncover of that section and what remains of it as it heads to join the Portishead branch. So hope you can join me again here on Western Country Wanderings for another Railway Explores. So I hope you enjoyed that little bit of extra footage there showing you the subway and also the original Brunel shed, which is just over that side, which is still currently used as a car park. I just think that's a bit of an insult to Brunel's legacy and wonder one day it may be used for a different purpose. I mean, we have the magnificent building behind me. We're going to make our way back now across towards St Mary Redcliffe Church and on down to the harbour once more. So I'm now in Redcliffe Mead Lane, making my way to St Mary Redcliffe Churchyard. If you remember, was just down here and we saw that tunnel last time. I won't show you all that again. I'll include a link to Bristol Harbour Railway number 1 at the end of this video. If you haven't seen that one, I recommend you watch that first, because then this second part will make a bit more sense. Just to recap though, so our route was kind of around here and then it headed into the tunnel underneath the churchyard. And the purpose of it was to link the harbour via railway to the rest of the railway network. It was a joint effort between the GWR, needs no introduction of course, and the Bristol Exeter Railway, say it opened in 1872. And you had that short extension that went on in 1876 onto Wapping Wharf. One thing I forgot to mention last time, I showed you where it crossed what is now part of the harbour there. I think it's called Bathurst Wharf, and there was a lift bridge there, bascule bridge, which was steam driven. I am hoping that the M shed's going to be open today, so I'm not sure if they allowed photography in there or not, and if they do then I'll include some shots of that, because I think they've got some bits and pieces from that in there, as well as probably catching up with Henbury again. Well, I've just left St Mary Redcliffe's churchyard and yet again in vain I've been looking for that, I think it's like 2 rails stuck up, I should find it on the internet, of the tramway, nothing to do with the Bristol Harbour Railway, which I think was from when it was bombed during the Second World War. Apparently it's in the churchyard somewhere, but I've been around it about 3 times, asked somebody, and no, they didn't know where it was either, so I failed on that one again. But anyway, we're heading along here and then we can make our way down the steps back towards Bristol Harbour, which is always a delight. We're here almost mid-September 2024. It's a very chilly morning. When I got up this morning it was only 3 degrees, hence the scarf with me. It's warming up a little bit. It's probably about 8 or 9 now. We've got my gloves with me as well though, so I'm prepared for all adventures. I need to stay a little bit later to carry on filming here, but yeah, it's delightful. These are colourful houses that we saw last time along Redcliffe Parade East. Now, just to issue a correction at this point, in the last video I said that this was connected to the Bristol Harbour Railway. It isn't. It was actually a watch office for a fireboat called the Pyronaut, which I understand is actually been preserved inside the M shed. So we can go in there, we'll have a look at that, and I'll see if I can include a photograph of it, because by the time I've read it, I'll have had the photograph of it, if you see what I mean. So yeah, thank you. I forgot the gentleman's name who did that correction with that, but that was, yeah, watch office for the Pyronaut fire ship here at Bristol Harbour. So I've just walked down this ramp from Redcliffe East Wharf, which was built in 1760s, I do believe. And this ramp here is actually called the Donkey Ramp. Takes you down to Phoenix Wharf. I would imagine that's something to do with, well, I'm guessing donkeys were probably stabled above the wharf, and they were used to move goods on the wharf side here at Phoenix Wharf. In fact, there's a couple of other interesting things before we continue our journey on down. There are caves and passageways here underneath what was originally known as Addercliff, and in December 1585 troops were mustered here to fight Philip of Spain, and the Earl of Pembroke inspected them in March of 1586. The wharf behind was originally named after King Alfred, thought to have sheltered in the caves here, and renamed King Wharf, being sought by the King family of Redcliffe Parade East. So that's the one with the colourful houses on the top. The last merchants to use it while plying the middle passage were slaves from Africa to the West Indies. Then rum and sugar was stored here, and later named Midland Wharf after the railway, and presently named Phoenix Wharf, the former name of the Sun Alliance Insurance Group, which funded its renovation, should I say, and that of the Phoenix car park above it. So this was probably used once upon a time to store rum and sugar. Amazing. I didn't realise it had gone through so many name changes. I thought perhaps Phoenix may have been named after a boat or a ship, which we used the wharf frequently. But according to that, not. Only went through a couple of name changes. Interesting about the King of Spain and the Earl of Pembroke as well. Anyway, we're going to continue our journey on back down to Wapping Wharf by the M shed. The other interesting thing about the caves here, what was known as Addercliff, is that they were excavated to provide sand. Now this area was known for porcelain manufacture. Originally the earliest known date for porcelain manufacture in the UK, but also later glass manufacture. And of course one of the ingredients of glass is of course sand. So the rocks there on the underneath Addercliff and the Redcliffe Terrace, East Redcliffe Terrace there, a very, very good source of sand. Hence why they were excavated, to get the sand out or provide sand for glass manufacture here in Bristol. And also then they were later used for storage for the aforementioned rum and sugar. We need to go that way though to continue our adventures here looking for the remnants of the Bristol Harbour Railway. So we're now back here at Bathurst Wharf, and that there is now known as the Lower Guinea Footbridge, and it's almost the site of where we had that steam-driven lift bridge to get the Harbour Railway from Temple Meads, in fact out of the tunnel which is thus there, which I showed in the first video, across here. But yeah, I'm hoping there's going to be a little bit more information again about that in the M shed too. So we're now at the end of Merchant's Quay, leaving onto Prince's Wharf, which is that over there. No steam trains running today, unfortunately, but it does mean it's a lot quieter. I have to find it a little bit overwhelming last time, because I didn't realise the boat festival was on over both days of the weekend. But it was good to capture it in action, so that was great. So if you want to see it in action, as I say, check out part 1 of the Bristol Harbour video. Anyway, I'm going to go now into the Bristol M shed and I'll tell you some more about that when I come out and show you some photographs, so I'll hopefully be able to take them inside it as well. And then we'll have our explorations following the route that we went on that train, Henbury, a few weeks ago, and see where we can diverge off to where it joins the Portishead branch. See you in a bit. So I've just come out the M shed, very, very interesting in there. In fact, there's so much in there. It's not all obviously harbour related. It gives you the story of Bristol, particularly its people. I really like the postcard section. It was a project done in 2009, looking at various different places within Bristol, the restoration taken upon them, speaking to the residents of places like Easton and St Paul's, Hartcliffe, when it was being developed in the early 60s. It's really, really interesting. So much to take in today. It's not really the subject for our video. However, I will now include some clips that I managed to take in there. They have a cafe in there, so it's really nice, really pleasant. They've got a gallery, and also it's free entry, which is great. So it's open Tuesdays, I think right through to Saturdays. Not sure if it's open Sundays. I'll put the details below. I'll link to the M Shed in the description of today's video. So that are the cranes there. Those are steam cranes. They were actually built in Bath in 1951, and they still are, or they've been restored. They were restored in the early 2000s, and they can operate on the railway tracks here, well, double width, moving up and down. So they would have been used when the harbour was completely functioning here. So that's really good to see that they still have those links with the past here, Bristol Harbour, and also our Bristol Harbour Railway. Now, what I intend to do now is move away from the M shed. I think we'll probably track down the other side where it's a little bit quieter, because here, let me just show you a second. So that's the M shed there. So you have tracks here. We've got two tracks, and they're also running in where you can see like there's a crossover spur here. And the other side of this building here, which is currently the art warehouse and a coffee shop, goes down what is now called Museum Street. So we're going to follow the tracks down that way this time to Ashton Gate, where this railway linked up with the Portishead branch in, well, I think the act was actually 1902, and I think it actually opened around about 1904. If I get some more information on the exact date, because I've got a couple of plaques and a couple of sources, and it seems to differ somewhat. I'm going with 1904 at the moment. If it's any different to that, I'll put it in below. So we're going to head down Museum Street now to see what we can see of this former railway line here in Bristol. Now, the Bristol Harbour Railway in its present form, I think it became a heritage line in 1978, various opening days throughout the year, is the only one, I think, in the entire world steam operated, that's in the heart of a city, that's right next to a harbour, not a working harbour for freight anymore, but of course it's a very busy harbour for the leisure industry. It's also the only heritage line that I know of where you can walk along the ballast and the railway tracks right in the heart of a city centre. That makes this totally unique and totally interesting, well, from my perspective anyway, and fascinating to be able to do and to explore here on the second part of the Bristol Harbour Railway. So last time, of course, if you remember, we got a train trip with Portbury, sorry, it was Henbury, wasn't it? And both Henbury and Portbury, they worked in conjunction with 20 other locomotives that I found out in my tour of Bristol M Shed there. It Avonmouth docks, so that happened, and thankfully they were restored. Peckett built here in Bristol, and so we're going to head down this way following this track so far, see how far we can go till we get, well, we may need to go around different diversions as we head towards the Portishead branch, but we'll see where we go. We've got an interesting plaque here which coincides with our date of 1904, which is interesting, so let's have a look at this a minute. So it's actually marked, you see that there, 1904, BD. I don't know what the BD stands for. I'm assuming B for Bristol, but 1904 links in with our story, of course, of the opening of this section away from Wapping Wharf. Remember, Wapping Wharf was the extension that opened 5 years later after the original line from Temple Meads down to this point here. So it had that extension here to Wapping Wharf. Originally it was just around the Bathurst Basin, a little bit beyond that to where we were earlier in the video. But we're going to head down this way and follow the tracks. Bit of footage there where you've got the sidings here. The main track that we were travelling on last time is just over there. I was going from one sleeper to the other, and every time I stepped from one to the other, of course there was a little bit of a jolt, so probably about the slightly shaky camera word there. But yes, we've got some of these flatbeds here have been repaired and restored, belonging to the M Shed, but some are awaiting restoration, like you always get on other heritage lines around the country. Beautiful day still here. So this takes you down to the SS Great Britain and Matthew, but we're going to be heading off shortly, diverging away. So there's actually some points here, manually driven points, so we're just going to have a look at those because they would have been in operation when this railway was working. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the closure of the Harbour Railway because it's not quite as straightforward as it appears to be. So up here we've got this ground frame. I don't know if it's got a name or not. Yes, it has. It's called Buttery. So it's the Buttery ground frame. That's this one here. I think I did a photograph of that last time. So it's Buttery ground frame, and this is where our line would have split off. So down that way it's heading towards Great Britain. That's just Great Britain. In fact, there was another extension. I don't want to get too complicated in our story today, but there was another extension to Cannon's Wharf, which is over that side of harbour, so kind of round, so a bit further on to where we were last time. But this is the one we're going to be focused on next. So there might be a part 3 looking at the Cannon's Wharf, but I don't think there is much there to see these days because there's been a lot of development with apartments in that particular area. So we're going to head down this way and see how far we can go. As I say, we may need to make a diversion to retrace our route. Now, something I am interested to look at, there is something known as the, if you're Bristolian or live in the Bristol area, you'll be familiar with this, known as the Chocolate Path, and I think it's called that because of the block sets paving, which looks like blocks of chocolate. And I think it was closed for probably a number of years because there was a collapse of the embankment into the River Avon, and that reopened, I think, fairly recently. So we're going to see what we can see of that here on our railway adventure today. So we've got some more railway infrastructure here, the tracks. Just see that there. As I say, last time we curved down that way outside of the apartment, so you've seen that already from part 1, so I'm not going to cover that again here today. And we've got another lever here, which I'm not going to touch. Made in Darlington by Gwyn Williams Limited, so another lever here. It's called a treble leverage, and it's two-way, which would be moving with that linkage here across to the mechanism there, which is our points. Which is our points there from the split of the sidings back down there. So this would have been our route. So as I say, we had the, what was it called? The Buttery ground frame originally. And so the track would then split, so it's going around that way, and we've kind of gone on to Cannon's Marsh, and this way it would have linked up both to the Portishead branch, more about this in a bit, and also then through direct connection to the Exeter main line, Bristol Exeter main line, without having to go back there towards Bristol Temple Meads. Also interesting to note that on the outer rail here, or the rail nearest the footpath, the other side of that fence, although incidentally I haven't come across the fence to get onto the track here, is that here, if you can see that. There's a double rail there, and I think it's protection rail because we're on a bit of a curve, so the inner rail would have protected where on the outer rail where those wagons and locomotives will be heading down here in the direction of the Ashton Gate West Loop and the Portishead branch. I think ordinarily a track bed like this one, which is a line that's no longer used or very, very occasionally used by the M Shed volunteers, would have been ripped up and probably repurposed as a road or building for land. And it's such lucky and fantastic that Bristol has kept its industrial heritage. So here we come to our first bridge over the Bristol Harbour Railway. Of course, in the harbour area itself there's no bridges, apart from, of course, the tunnel there under St Mary Redcliffe Churchyard. There was also an overbridge on the outside of Temple Gate. In fact, I'm still a little bit confused about which side of the approach road to Temple Meads that our branch railway left, because it seemed to be a bit of conflict. My understanding is, as you're looking at Temple Meads, it was on the right hand side next to the B&E railway building. On the left hand side are remains of a tramway. In fact, the rails are still there in place. So if it was on the left with a bridge going over the road at Temple Gate, and there are some photographs for that, how did they get around the conflict with the trams? I'm not sure. If you do know, please drop a comment below, because it still remains a little bit confusing. Anyway, we're not at that site at the moment. We're here, other end of the Bristol Harbour Railway, this fantastic wall here, which would have been quite a substantial cost for this extension to Ashton Gate. It wasn't just simply putting railway tracks down and some ballast. There was some significant engineering as well, and that is some mighty bridge. I'm not sure what road that carries. I'll have a look and insert the map now so you can see exactly where we are. But we're going to follow our tracks. Our footpath is actually just over here though, so it's just on that side. So there's a fence. So what I may need to do is to come back this way to return to the M Shed to pick up the footpath again. So there's footpath signs on that one taking you to Ashton Court. In fact, I was there recently with Louise from Southwest Sundays when we were looking at the Bristol Balloon Festival. Fantastic festival that was. And I actually caught the train from Parsons Street, something I may do later today, but we'll see how it goes, because I might do double back again to take some more photographs. So we've also now, if you notice behind me, if you've been looking at what's been happening behind me, we've picked up another line. So we've now got double tracks. It ends in siding just down there. So yeah, we're going to continue it along here. So this is really interesting. As I say, I'm thinking I'm probably just going to come up against a fence at some point, which is going to prevent me from going any access. So I haven't come across any fences whatsoever at the moment since I've left the M Shed. So this is a really interesting. I feel quite privileged to be able to walk along tracks like this in the middle of a city centre without kind of really trespassing or anything, because it is following this original route straight there by the M Shed. Now at this point the siding has just rejoined it, so it is gone back to being single track again at this point. And I've just noticed that over on that side it definitely is the chocolate path, so that was the path that was closed for a couple of years following the collapse. So we'll still see how far we get going this side, and then we'll probably have to rejoin up with the chocolate path, and then I'll get you some shots of the river as well, because as I say, this is running completely parallel to the tidal River Avon here in Bristol at this point. So that way there's some work being done on the bridge. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to return to the M Shed and then pick up the route following the chocolate path, which looks like it has been restored as well. So then we can follow the river and then work our way back that way towards Ashton Gate. At the M shed, so I walked my way back, retracing the track. So I'm now the other side of that fence. You can't get through the fence, but the railway is still back here again. Marked Avonmouth Docks there, number 27, which has been restored and repainted, and I think the brakes and everything have been done on that as well, which is good to see. So we're going to make our way back down here. Oh, I love this one here. Just point this one out to you. W. Vincent and Company. That's wonderful. House Steam Smiths and Anthracite Coals. 32 Bristol Harbour. Oh, that's great. I love that. And PBA. Not sure what PBA stands for. Something Bristol Authority? Port of Bristol Authority, probably. I'm guessing. So yeah, so we're going to continue along this way. I think it goes down to something called the Create Centre as well, which I know nothing. I think it might be an art space, but we'll find out when we get there. So we're going to go back along this way, back under that railway bridge again, the first bridge for this extension of the Bristol Harbour Railway, and following the chocolate path alongside the River Avon. So we're now on the chocolate path, which starts just there. In fact, there's a little section of it up there as well. Looks like it was tarmacked over at some point. So we're going to continue along there. Our railway is over there, River Avon here. And I'm not sure how old this chocolate path is. What you have got here though are, there we go, blue bricks down there, which are obviously stronger than the red ones. And that was probably built at the same time of our Bristol Harbour Railway extension. And we're going to go head on down this way to see what we can see. So we're on the chocolate path proper now. I love that, it's just called chocolate path. Obviously there is chocolate connections with Fry's and Cadbury's, etc., and other chocolate companies indeed in Bristol area, so it seems appropriate that it is called chocolate path, even though it is because of the type of surface that is upon it. So yes, railway's still over there, still following it here, and I think this is where, around this area here, because you can see it's been resurfaced, where the path was closed. So it must have been this area where this embankment collapsed into the River Avon there. And I think it was closed for quite some time, much to the annoyance of Bristolians and people who live in this area generally, and people visiting it, because it is a very useful path to get down towards the Ashton Gate and the southern part of the city here of Bristol. So if you want to get your bearings where we are, just down that road there will take you to the SS Great Britain, and I think what we're on at the moment currently is known as Spike Island. If you look at a map, I'll insert it now, that'll all make sense, because well, you can see it's an island with the River Avon on that side, and the rest of the harbour just over that side there. There is a footbridge coming up which I think is closed. I can't remember the name of it, I'll put it in below, which is undergoing repair. It looks like there's lots of scaffolding on it as well, and part of it went over our railway here on Bristol Harbour Railway as well. But our railway though goes over the River Avon to connect it up to the Portishead branch. Hopefully we'll be able to see some of that as well. So let's keep walking along the chocolate path. So that there confirms the name, Spike Island. That's also an art centre. Not that is the one known as the Create Centre. Perhaps you can drop a comment, confirm that or not. But it's certainly an art centre called Spike Island here on Spike Island. So that's why I needed to return back to the M shed, because if you follow the railway tracks, you can't get past that fence there, and that fence is there because of the scaffolding there, which is probably holding up part of the bridge, footbridge across the River Avon. Now this section of the River Avon here in Bristol is known as the Avon New Cut. It was actually cut out completely new, not for as a canal purpose, in the early part of the 19th century in order to divert tides away from the harbour, thus over there, the other side of Spike Island. And in doing so, of course, it meant that there was a lot less sediment and silt building up in the harbour to enable the harbour there to function with the ships and boats mooring up to the wharfs to unload their goods. Also along the side of Avon New Cut here, there are lots of trees. They were planted in the 1870s. In fact, there's still a trust that seeks to look after the River Avon here, the Avon New Cut, and the beautiful nature on this side, right in the heart of urban Bristol. Footbridge that's closed here over the Avon New Cut is called Vauxhall Bridge. I'm not sure how long it's going to be closed for, or indeed actually when it was built, so I'll put those bits of information running along the bottom of the screen now, so you've got an idea about that. So it'd be good to see that back in use again. So I think there's been a couple of bridges closed in Bristol recently. There was one at King's Weston, not that far from where I was the other day when I was completing the final episode of the Severn Way. So so it's good to see them restored and back into use again, so pedestrians and other people can make good use of these facilities here. Now here you notice that the rails come to an end. In fact, this part has been restored as well, so there must have been a complete collapse here, probably undermining that road that runs parallel to the Chocolate Path, the railway, and the River Avon New Cut. So the rails end here, but they have put new ballast down, so there's no rails there. They could be reinstated to extend the line of the Bristol Harbour Railway in terms of heritage purposes if they want to, because there's no obstructions from where I've walked from the M Shed all the way to this place. It's just that now that that's been redone with new brickwork and foundations to support this embankment and the Chocolate Path, they just need to relay some track back there again. Anyway, we're going to continue down here towards Ashton Gate. So here we have a bright green shiny new gate which was built for the railway, the Bristol Harbour Railway. I'm not sure if that's part of a rail there or not. In fact, that gate does open to allow you to get access onto the tracks here, and I'm not sure what has happened here because it looks like possibly remains of a bridge, or I don't know. There's something on the other side of the river, so let's have a look at that. So we're here, so we have this here which is an abutment here, and I'm not sure if something went over on that side, so we'll need to do a bit of research and come back to you. Well, I don't know what that abutment was for on the other side. It's not marked on the OS map, and we still have our railway here, so I don't think the railway went over it, so it's still in there, our railway. The railway bridge is a little bit further up, but I'll see if I can do some research on the old OS maps going back to, I think you're going to go back to the 1880s, can't you? So it might show up on there, because as I say, this was dug out in the early 1800s. So we have some civil engineering works going on here. So our railway track bed is over there, but the rails have been taken up at this point. It's been re-tarmacked here. There's a huge warehouse here, but I can just now see our railway bridge in front of me. So tracks would have come along in this direction. In fact, I can actually see some sleepers over there in the corner of the car park, all stacked up in a pile. They're just, you can make that out, just over there. So they've been taken out here, and it does actually say that this is New Cut River Wall stabilisation work, which only started in the spring of this year, spring of 2024. So they're still doing some more work to stabilise the risk to the New Cut walls, because obviously it could take away not only the footpath and the line of the railway, but what's this? Let's have a look at this. So here we have a circular piece of concrete. Was that a railway turntable, I wonder? Because it would come into the end of the track before it diverges off the Avon. So there may have been a railway requirement to have needed one here. And all our sleepers are up just over on that side there. So interesting. I don't know if we can get up there. Let's just have a look. Here we have something interesting. I don't know if these are in their original situation or they've been taken up as part of the New Cut stabilisation works. But lots of diamond patterns, as I say, as we're coming across towards where the railway would have crossed over the New Cut on the railway bridge. In fact, you can see part of the wall, the railway wall is just over here, which is just thus there. So the railway would have been this side of it, and all these sleepers are here. Now these are the old wooden sleepers, but stacked up further back are some concrete ones. I wonder if they're newer. They've been acquired from Network Rail, taken out of use, and the Bristol Harbour Heritage Railway is going to reuse those to relay the track in that missing section that we saw earlier. I'm not sure. Now behind me here, by this large bonded warehouse, red brick warehouse by the railway tracks, is this metal frame. Now this metal frame platform actually looks very similar to the platform outside of the M shed. I'm wondering if the Bristol Harbour Railway originally used this for their train trips, using Portbury and Henbury down to here near the Create Centre. I think that's entirely possible. It looks very, very similar, and I wonder, once the stabilisation works have been completed, that they'll have plans to have the train coming all the way down here alongside the River Avon Newcat. That'll be really, really good if they can do that, because it's a very, very scenic route. Now here the route, original line of our railway is a little bit lost. I think part of it may have been used to open this road section, cycleway here, across this, which was the railway bridge. This is the Bristol Harbour Railway Bridge taking us across Newcat, and of course it's open, so we're certainly going to be going across there. And you're not going to believe this if you're a regular viewer to West Country Wanderers. It's really exciting. That is also the route of the Monarch's Way. Yay! That there is the Create Centre. It's also home to Bristol City Council's archives, so that's all now. There's also a cafe in there as well, so if you're walking, following the walk that I've done today, you could get a coffee stop there before you head back in the direction of the harbour itself. Before we finish the video though, of course what we're going to do now is cross this bridge. Now I've since found out, because a bus went across it, it's a guided busway. So it's a guided busway as well as being a cycleway and a pedestrian one. So where the railway tracks once was is now where buses go. And you've come across these. There's one, I think, in Cambridgeshire, which was using the old line towards St Ives, Cambridgeshire, not the Cornwall one, which goes from Cambridge to St Ives. And there is a bus coming up now, heading to Long Ashton Park and Ride, and it's just about to go across the bridge now. There it goes. Right, so we're going to make our way across there now. Now, before I do go across that bridge, I'm actually here at the Cumberland Basin Metro bus stop, and so this is a guided busway along there also for bikes. And we have here lots of railway paraphernalia. We've got some sleeper stops here, so we're outside that warehouse there, just up there. And you have some more. Remember I showed you that platform? Well, there's some more here. These here have recently been painted, so it looks like they are going to be getting ready for being reinstalled again, just there. Other side of the road over the guided busway is something else. This is a bridge here, the road over there, and I think this is a spur railway. So remember that warehouse, bonded warehouse, I think it came off that way, following this way off our Bristol Harbour Railway, heading down to Cumberland Basin itself and the harbour. And I'm not sure if then was a curve which continued on round down to Cannons Marsh. Could be the case. You can definitely see it's railway though, because of the walls that are on the other side of this cutting. So we've got walls there and walls there behind me there, obviously graffitied as you would expect here in Bristol. But yeah, we're going to make our way back under the bridge now, because there's nothing else to see down that end of it, crossing over the bridge. And the nature reserve behind me there has just reminded me of something which I had forgotten from my notes. Is that nature reserve is called Butterfly Junction, and it was here that there was a network of junction. And I'm guessing it was called Butterfly because if you looked at it from the aerial map, it resembled the shape of a butterfly. So that way is down towards Cumberland Basin. But as I say, we're going to head over across the railway bridge. Now, if I do a part 3 of this one, we'll explore that one next time. But as I say, I don't think there's much to see in the way of infrastructure, but I can certainly do some research and show you exactly where the line went. We're still following the guided busway, which I think opened 2020, so around about 3 or 4 years ago. So we've come off the bridge now. So it's good to see the bridge is intact and it has been restored, because now, of course, it's carrying buses as well as cyclists and pedestrians, where previously it was carrying trains. So Ashton Court's over that way. That's where we were at the Balloon Festival. But the Festival Way footpath is currently closed. You can't get across to Ashton Court that way. But I'm going to follow this until it met up with the Portishead branch and see if we can actually see the rails of the Portishead branch. And then I'll probably end the video back there towards the SS Great Britain and take some more photographs on the way. What I am hoping to do, though, I'm not sure whether I'll do a part 3 of this one or not, but I'm certainly hoping to do a video looking at the Portishead branch. And obviously they are looking to, just going under an underpass at the moment, so hence it's dark, looking to reopen that. So we'll have a look at the line of it and what work they need to do to reopen it. So what you're looking at now here at Ashton Gate is the junction of our Bristol Harbour Railway to the Portishead branch. So we have the shiny rails of the Portishead branch, which opened 5 years before the Bristol Harbour Railway in 1867, and then went on to be closed in, I think it was around about 1970. It was reopened as a freight-only line to Royal Portbury Dock as late as 2002. So just, what's that, 22 years ago. So it's still used now. And our guided busway is just on the right of it there. But you've got to imagine that would have been railway tracks joining just under where that shrubbery is. Currently where I'm standing, so I'm currently standing on a railway bridge. I'm just going to head back to a park to tell you a little bit more about our Bristol Harbour Railway before we head over to the SS Great Britain. And that's looking in the opposite direction. So if you follow that railway line there, it will take you back to the Bristol and Exeter, in fact what is known as the West Loop. It formed a triangle, so there was a north chord and a south chord where it joined up with the Bristol and Exeter Railway. Bit too far for me to walk and explore that over there. But if you follow the road round to the left of the other side of the flyover, that will take you round eventually to Parsons Street Station, which sits right on the Bristol to Exeter line. So I've just come round to this park, which is quite clear. It's got this, so this is the Cumberland Basin here. And of course, well, I don't need to say what that is, you know what that is. And yeah, so there's a round outflow coming out of the harbour here, so that's Pike Island there. There's our bridge that we crossed, the railway bridge, the Bristol Harbour Railway. Just to tell you about the closure of the line. Now, the closure of the line happened in 1964, sort of. So that was the end from Wapping Wharf up to Bristol Temple Mead Station, which we've been following today and in the first episode as well. However, the section from Wapping Wharf, which we've been walking along today and including to here, down to that connection through Butterfly Junction and where you've seen it join the Portishead line and then on to the Bristol Exeter, that stayed open for a bit longer. It actually stayed open until 1987 to serve the needs of Western Fuels, which was a coal distribution depot. See if I can find a photograph of that over on the net. If I can, I'll insert it now. So it carried on then. So although the track was ripped up through the tunnel and etc. from Temple Meads to Wapping Wharf, that section, so 20 years on, it carried on for a little bit longer, which was really good. We'll see now it's all gone completely. But hopefully one day they'll be able to reopen the Heritage line, the Bristol Heritage line, to here, or just the other side of the bridge again. So it'd be good to see that. Just need to put some tracks back in, don't they? From now that has been completely stabilised. So they got a little bit more work. I think it goes on for another year. Once that's completed, they can get those rails and concrete sleepers in, and they'll be able to operate services right through to that warehouse again, which will be really, really good to have that down by the Create Centre. So I've come down to the SS Great Britain side. Obviously you need a ticket to get in, but just got to glimpse of it there, just be the bit where you go in to pay for your ticket. That's perhaps something we'll cover another day here on West Country Wanderings. In the meantime though, my YouTube colleague Louise from Southwest Sundays has done a great video about the SS Great Britain, and I'll link it to the end of this one in case you want to have a look what it looks like before planning a visit here to Harbourside here at Bristol. Hope you enjoyed this video on one of my railway series looking at the legacy of the Bristol Harbour Railway here in the magnificent city of Bristol. Until next time, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you on West Country Wanderings again very soon. All the best for now. Cheers. Goodbye.